Verbal and non-verbal communication. So let's start with verbal communication. Verbal communication is the use of words to share information with other people. It can therefore include both spoken and written communication. However, many people use the term to describe only spoken communication. The verbal element of communication is all about the words that you choose and how they are heard and interpreted. And next, nonverbal communication. Nonverbal communication is the transmission of messages or signals through a nonverbal platform, such as eye contact, facial expression, gestures, posture, and body language. It includes the use of social cues, kinetics, distance and physical environments, appearance of voice, and of touch. Then this is the 5 examples of verbal and non-verbal communication. For verbal communication, this is the 5 examples. 1. Talking face-to-face with others. 2nd, having an audio communication over telephone or digital medium. 3. Making a video communication. 4. Chatting to friends, family through offline or online. 5. Talking to colleagues or boss, either offline or online. And next is nonverbal communication. This is the 5 examples. 1. Eye contact. 2. Facial expressions. 3. Gestures and movement. 4. Tone of voice. 5. Physical touch. So let's move on to advantages and disadvantages of verbal and nonverbal communication. So for this topic is advantages of verbal communication. So first, time saver. With the method of verbal communication, tasks can be efficiently dealt with. Verbal communication saves times and helps us complete jobs within a few minutes by avoiding other lengthy procedures. Through verbal communication, you can convey your thoughts or instructions at your regulated speed and not wait on such tasks that are to be completed. This method can help you communicate better with others as well as understand what they have to say. So second, quick feedback. Feedbacks are necessary for any social scenario where communication is involved. By utilizing verbal communication, you will be able to produce quick feedbacks to the host's original message. In the case of doubts or questions, verbal communication helps clarify them much faster than any other method of communication. 3. Convenient. Verbal communication is the most widely accepted method of communication. Individuals worldwide prefer verbal communication over the variants of communication due to its convenience. Verbal communication makes language and oral comprehensions for more straightforward and understandable. 4. Ace preparation. Any individuals who know how to convey their thoughts into words need to prepare the least in the case of verbal communication. It is one of the most simple types of communications which does not involve any material to convey the intended message and are the easiest to conduct. 5. Privacy. Verbal communication ensures privacy to individuals to maintain the secrecy of certain events. It is easier to convey specific urgent thoughts through the way of verbal communication than using symbols or other methods. Verbal communication can also prove to be used in emergencies. So let's move on to the topic of disadvantages of verbal communication. First, the certain meaning. Sometimes the meaning of intended messages can change during verbal communication and drift from the actual point. These are the barriers that comes in the way of effective communication. If instructions are not conveyed properly or are not appropriately understood due to lack of clarity, it can delay work or result in something unexpected. Second, inconvenient for long messages. Verbal communication is inconvenient when conveying long paragraphs since it can miss important points and become very lengthy, causing misinterpretation or effective communication. If used for writing long passages, the written form of verbal communication can cause problems for other people to understand the meaning behind it efficiently. 3. Misunderstanding. If the messages through verbal communication is not conveying well and very precision, it can create misunderstanding for a communication gap. Putting your ideas for truths across to the audience is a critical factor in any kind of communication. Hence, sometimes verbal communication can cause misunderstandings if not taken into consideration. Number 4. Unnecessary information. When it comes to conveying your thoughts and opinions, ideas orally, it can include unnecessary or irrelevant information, leading to a gap in communication and delaying effectiveness. Number 5. Communication expense. Verbal communication can be expensive. Sometimes suppose the conversation behind holds is not in your native language or a language. In that case, you understand the cost of translation and other such factors can be way more expensive than any other form of communication making it. So next is advantages and disadvantages of nonverbal communication. So this is the 5 advantages of nonverbal communication. First, easy presentation. Information can be easily presented in nonverbal communication through using visual, audiovisual, and silence means of nonverbal communication. Second, substituting nonverbal messages may substitute for the verbal messages, especially if it is blocked by noise, interruptions, long distance, etc. For example, gestures finger to lips to indicate need for quiet, facial expression, a nod instead of yes. And third one is helpful for illiterate people. This type of communication use gestures, facial expressions, eye contact, proximity, touching, etc. and without using any spoken or written word, so it is very much helpful to illiterate people. Fourth, helpful for specially abled people. Nonverbal cues of communication greatly help in physical challenged people, especially to deaf people. Deaf people exchange messages through the movements of hands, fingers, eyeball, etc. Then the 5. Attractive presentation. Nonverbal communication is based on visual, picture, graph, sign, etc. that can be seen very much attractive. So the disadvantages of nonverbal communication, here it is. First, vague of imprecise. Nonverbal communication is quite vague and imprecise. Since it's the communication, there is no use of words or language which expresses clear meaning to the receiver. Second, long conversation are not possible. In nonverbal communication, long conversation and necessary explanation are not possible. No party can discuss the particular issues of the messages. Third, difficult to understand. Difficult to understand and requires a lot of repetition in nonverbal communication since it uses gestures, facial expression, eye contact, touch, etc. for communicating with others, which may not be understandable for the simple and foolish people. Fourth, costly. In some cases, nonverbal communication involves huge cost. For example, neon sign, PowerPoint presentation, cinema, etc. are very much costly compared to other forms of communication. Fifth, distortion of information. since it uses gestures, facial expression, eye contact, touch, sign, sound, paralanguage, etc. for communicating with others. There is a great possibility in distortion of information in nonverbal communication. So that's all. Thank you for watching and listening for my presentation and disadvantage and advantage of nonverbal communication. And lastly, this is Barbie Shen Arsogarol from BIT Computer Night 1A. Thank you.